The waiter brought the check in a small leather folder and set it on the table between two empty chairs and one half-finished glass of Pinot Noir, which was mine. I looked at the folder. I looked at the chairs. I looked at the front door of the restaurant, where my son Donovan and my daughter-in-law Phaedra had walked out 14 minutes earlier under the polite story that Phaedra had a migraine and they needed to get back to the kids. And Mum, you stay, finish your wine, take your time. The car is yours tonight. Donovan parked it out front for you. I had nodded. I had said, of course, sweetheart. I had watched them cross the dining room toward the maitre stand. Phaedra had already had her coat on. She had been wearing it for almost the entire entree, which is something women do when they have decided to leave, but want the leaving to look spontaneous. The waiter, a young man named Adrian with a careful smile, was waiting beside my chair. He cleared his throat softly. Ma'am, would you like to settle the check now, or would you prefer to wait? I opened the folder. The number on the slip was $942.16. I had ordered a 6-ounce fillet, medium rare, and a side of asparagus and 1 glass of wine. The asparagus had been $12. The wine had been $17. The fillet had been $48. I had not ordered the bottle of 2014 Brunello that Phaedra had selected from the cellar list. I had not ordered the seafood tower for the table. I had not ordered the Wagyu tasting flight that Donovan had described to the sommelier as a little birthday treat for the family, even though it was not anyone's birthday and Donovan was not paying. The bill on the table was the bill for a restaurant where 6 people had eaten as if money would be settled at the end by someone other than themselves. And that someone, it turned out, was me. I sat very still in my chair. My hands didn't tremble. I did not cry. Adrian stood patiently. He had the particular kind of stillness that good waiters have when they have realized, halfway through a meal, that one person at the table is not in on the arrangement. I looked at the empty chair where Phaedra had been sitting. Her napkin was on her plate, balled up. Her water glass had a perfect lip print of the wine-colored lipstick she wore every Sunday. The lipstick I had once admired in a way that made her smile thinly and not tell me where she bought it. I looked at Donovan's chair. His linen napkin was folded, neatly folded, and placed beside his plate. The folding was the part that hurt. A man who is in a hurry because his wife has a migraine does not stop to fold his napkin. A man who has rehearsed the exit folds his napkin, so the leaving looks accidental rather than choreographed. The 2 grandchildren, Caspian and Theodora, had been seated to my left and right. Caspian had eaten 3 desserts. Theodora had eaten 1.5. The children, of course, did not know. The children never know. The children are weapons used by careful adults who understand that a grandmother will not abandon dessert to chase a son out of a restaurant in front of a 9-year-old. I looked back at Adrian. Could you bring me a fresh cup of coffee, please? Black, and the dessert menu. He blinked. Of course, ma'am. Thank you. Take your time. He left. I sat in the quiet pool of light my chair was sitting in, and I thought, very calmly, about what had just happened and what was going to happen next. I had been 75 for 6 weeks. My husband Roland had been gone for 8 years. My son was 46 years old. He had 4 children and a house in the foothills outside Sacramento that I had helped him buy in 2017 when his first business folded, and Phaedra had decided, 3 months pregnant with their 3rd child, that they could not move into a smaller house because of the school district. I had paid the down payment that year, $312,000. Roland had been gone 2 years already. The money had come from the sale of the lake house Roland and I had owned in Tahoe, a house we had spent 26 summers in, where Donovan had learned to swim and where Roland had built a small dock with his own hands the year I turned 40. I had sold that house to keep my son in his school district. I had not co-signed the mortgage. Donovan had insisted he could carry it on his own, and I had, in my widow's grief, wanted to believe him. But I had quietly co-signed something else. The home equity line of credit Donovan had taken out, in 2021, The HELOC he had used to pay off credit cards and renovate the kitchen and put a swimming pool in the backyard. And, I now suspected, finance dinners like the one I had just been left at. The HELOC was for $168,000. My signature was on it. Donovan had told me, in 2021, that the bank required a co-signer because his debt-to-income ratio was just slightly off. Mom, it's nothing. It's a formality. I had signed because I trusted him. The bank, of course, did not care about trust. The bank cared about signatures. If Donovan defaulted on the HELOC, the bank could come after me for the balance. But the same paperwork, the paperwork I had signed in 2021, with my eyes half closed in grief, also gave me the right, as a co-obligor, to demand an accounting of the loan and to call in the loan if I had reason to believe the borrower had misrepresented his financial position to me. I knew this because, 6 months ago, Roland's old friend Marshall had taken me to lunch and said, "Camille, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you know what you signed in 2021? Marshall had been a corporate banker for 41 years. He had retired in 2019. He had asked me that question over a salad. I had told him I trusted Donovan. Marshall had said, "Camille, the loan you co-signed gives you a clause most people don't know about. It is called the inquiry clause. If you ever want to use it, you call me first." I had said, of course, I had not used it. I lifted the empty wine glass on the table. I lifted Donovan's perfectly folded napkin. I lifted Phaedra's lipstick-stained water glass. I picked up my phone. It was 8:47 p.m. on a Saturday in October. I scrolled to Marshall's contact. I dialed. He picked up on the second ring. "Camille. Marshall, I'd like to use the clause." A small silence. Then, in the same dry voice he had used at lunch 6 months earlier, "Tell me what happened tonight." I told him. The Brunello, the seafood tower, the Wagyu flight, the migraine that arrived precisely when the bill arrived, the neatly folded napkin, the asparagus, and the filet I had actually ordered. When I was finished, Marshall said, "Camille, yes. I am going to need you to do 3 things. First, pay the bill. Pay only your portion. Ask the manager to leave the rest open and to mark the table abandoned. The restaurant has a process for that. Second, take a photo of the bill and the empty chairs before you leave. Third, do not call your son tonight. Sleep on it. I will meet you at my office at 9 tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have on the HELOC. It's a Sunday. Camille, I have been waiting 9 months for this phone call. I will be at the office at 9. I almost laughed. Marshall. Yes. Roland would have liked you tonight. Roland sent me Camille. I hung up. Adrian returned with the coffee and the dessert menu. I asked for a small slice of olive oil cake. I ate it slowly. I drank the coffee. I tipped Adrian 30% on the portion of the bill that was mine. Before I left, I asked the manager, a woman named Liesel, in a black dress and small gold earrings, to do exactly what Marshall had instructed. Liesel looked at the bill. She looked at the empty chairs. She looked at me. "Ma'am, I'd like to apologize on behalf of the restaurant. This is not the first time it has happened with this party. The last time, a woman named Phaedra Whitlock paid by leaving the country before the charge cleared and then disputed it. We have a note in the system." I looked at her. Liesel, yes. Could you print me a copy of that note, with the date? She smiled, just slightly. I can. She did. I drove home in Donovan's car, which he had not, in fact, left for me. The keys had been on the table, and I had taken them. I drove the speed limit. I parked in my own driveway. I did not call anyone. I sat in my kitchen with a glass of water, and I let myself remember. Not everything. Just the moments I had been training myself not to look at directly for almost a decade. The Christmas of 2017, 3 months after I had wired the down payment for the Foothills house. Phaedra had said, in front of all four grandparents. Roland's mother always said, "Real wealth is taste, not money." I had laughed politely. Roland's mother had been dead for 14 years. She had never, to my knowledge, said anything of the kind. The line had been delivered to position me as the money in a sentence where Phaedra's family was the taste. The summer of 2019. Donovan and Phaedra had hosted a 4th of July party. I had brought a peach pie. Phaedra's mother had brought a pavlova. The pavlova had been served on the deck. The peach pie had remained on the kitchen counter, untouched. At the end of the night, when I went to retrieve my pie, Phaedra had said, "Oh, Camille, take it home, we already have so much." The fall of 2020. Roland had been gone a year. Donovan had called me on a Tuesday morning to ask if I could take care of the kids for a few days because Phaedra's sister was getting married in Hawaii. I had flown out to their house. The few days had been 12 days. When they returned, Phaedra had handed me a small wrapped box as a thank you. Inside was a candle. The candle was from a marketing gift bag. The card on the back said complimentary with purchase, Holiday Boutique 2019. The summer of 2022. My granddaughter Theodora had asked me, unprompted, in my own kitchen, "Grandma, why don't you go to the country club anymore?" "Mommy said you stopped going because it got too expensive for you." I had not, in fact, stopped going. I had stopped going because Phaedra had stopped inviting me as her guest, and the membership rule was that grandparents could only enter under a member's signature. But Theodora, 6 years old, had been told her grandmother was poor. The Christmas of last year, Phaedra had organized a grandparent gift exchange at their house. I had drawn Phaedra's mother's name. I had given her a cashmere scarf. Phaedra had drawn my name. I had received a box of holiday-themed dish towels with little cartoon snowmen on them. I had laughed every time. I had laughed and laughed. There comes a moment when a woman has been laughing for too long, when her face starts to feel the shape of the laugh from the inside, like a mask molded over years to the contours of someone else's comfort. I sat in my kitchen at 10:14 p.m. on a Saturday in October, and I felt my face return to its own shape for the first time in a very long time. Marshall's office on Sunday morning smelled of coffee and old paper. He was in a sweater rather than a suit. He had a folder ready on his desk before I walked in. "Camille, sit." I sat. He slid the folder across. "This is the HELOC document you signed in 2021. The inquiry clause is on page 11, paragraph C. Read it now." I read. The clause was clear. As a co-obligor, I had the right to demand a full accounting of the loan from the borrower within 30 days of inquiry. If the accounting revealed material misrepresentation of the fund's use, I could accelerate the loan, make it immediately due and payable in full, or assume the loan myself and seek civil reimbursement from the borrower. Marshall watched me read. "Camille, I have already drafted the inquiry letter. It went into the bank's overnight queue at 6 a.m. this morning. They will process it Monday. Donovan will receive notice by Wednesday. He will have 30 days to provide a full accounting of how the $168,000 was spent." "Marshall, I haven't agreed yet." "You called me at 8:47 last night, Camille." I assumed agreement was implied. I looked at him. It was. "Good." He pulled out a second document. "This is the acceleration option. If the accounting reveals what we both suspect, that significant portions of the HELOC were spent on lifestyle expenditures rather than the home improvements, the loan was nominally for UCAN. Accelerate the entire balance. Donovan would have 90 days to refinance the loan into his name only and remove you, or to pay the full $168,000. He cannot do either. No, he cannot. Which means, Camille, that you have a third option. You can assume the loan yourself, foreclose on the second lien collateral, which is the equity in the house, and seek civil judgment against Donovan for the full amount. In other words, In other words, you can take the mortgage. I sat with that for a long moment. Marshall, I don't want their house. I know you don't. I want them to understand that I am not the woman who pays for the seafood tower. Yes. Can I do this without taking the house? You can. You can accelerate the loan. Give Donovan 90 days to refinance. He will not be able to. And at day 91, you can convert the acceleration into a long-term repayment plan with severe terms. He will pay you, Camille, every month for the next 18 years. He will write you a check the size of his mortgage, and every month when he writes that check, he will remember why. I closed my eyes. Roland would have called this the long sermon. Marshall laughed for the first time that morning. Roland was a poet about money, Camille. He always knew when to be the long sermon and when to be the swift door. This time, the long sermon. We worked for 2 hours. Marshall drafted the formal letter to be delivered Monday morning by certified mail, with copies to Donovan, Phaedra, and Donovan's attorney of record. The letter was 3 pages long. It was unfailingly polite. It was devastating. Before I left, I signed everything. Marshall walked me to the door. Camille, one more thing. Yes. The down payment, the $312,000 from the lake house. Was that a gift? I paused. On paper, yes, there was a gift letter. Was it discussed as a permanent gift, or as help that might be repaid someday? Donovan said, someday I'll pay you back. Mom, I promise, he has not. Camille, someday is not legally enforceable, but it is morally enforceable. I am not your lawyer for this part. I am your friend. I want you to think very carefully about whether you want that conversation to happen now or later. I thought about it. Later, Marshall, the HELOC is enough sermon for now. Good answer. I drove home in my own car. Donovan's car was still in my driveway. I took a photograph of it. I sent the photograph to Marshall. I asked him to add a line to the letter. The keys to the 2019 Lexus currently parked at Mrs. Camille Whitlock's residence may be retrieved by appointment. Marshall replied, done. Camille Roland is laughing somewhere. I can hear him. The first voicemail came at 10:42 a.m. on Sunday morning, before the letter had even been delivered. Donovan, of course, had realized by Sunday breakfast that something was wrong, not the letter, the bill. Mom, I just saw the credit card alert. The restaurant charged me $490. I thought you said you'd handle it. Mom, what happened? Did you leave without paying the rest? Mom, the manager is calling me. Call me back, please. I noticed he had said, handle it. I noticed he had not said, thank you, or I'm sorry we left so abruptly, or how was the rest of your evening? I noticed that the moment the bill had become his problem, the bill had become a problem. The second voicemail, 11:18 a.m., from Phaedra. Camille, it's Phaedra. Listen, I don't know what happened last night, but Donovan is panicking, and I need you to call us back. Apparently, the restaurant only charged him for half, which I don't know how that happened. Did you tell them to do that? Camille, this is really inappropriate. We should be able to discuss this like adults. I noted that Phaedra had not yet realized this was about a bill. She thought it was about the bill. The bill had been 10 hours ago. The HELOC letter would be in their mailbox Wednesday. By Friday, adult would not be a word she would be using anymore. The third voicemail, at 1:07 p.m., from Donovan again. Different tone. Quieter. Mom, the restaurant manager told me what was on the bill. The Brunello, the seafood tower, the Wagyu thing. Mom. I didn't realize how it would look. I didn't realize how it added up. Phaedra ordered the wine, and then she ordered the seafood, and I didn't say anything. I should have said something. Mum, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I noted he had not yet apologized for leaving. He had apologized for the order. Apologies in the wrong order are not apologies. They are negotiations. I deleted that one. The fourth voicemail came at 4:33 p. Donovan again. He had clearly been thinking all afternoon. Mum, I keep thinking about last night, about leaving you there, about letting Phaedra say the migraine thing. The migraine thing was rehearsed, Mum. We talked about it in the car on the way over. She said if the bill was bigger than 300, we should make an exit. I went along with it. I didn't think it would actually be more than 300. I told myself we would split it later. But I knew, Mom. I knew when I folded my napkin. I knew when I walked out. Please call me back, please. This one I saved. I did not delete it. I did not call him back. I let it sit in the folder where I keep apologies that are starting to find their order. The HELOC inquiry letter was delivered by certified mail at 11:14 m on Wednesday morning. Donovan called me at 11:23. I did not answer. He called 11 more times that day. By 9 p.m. on Wednesday, Phaedra had called Marshall directly. Marshall's number was on the letter. Marshall took the call. He told me about it on Thursday morning over the phone. Camille, Phaedra called last night. Tell me. She introduced herself as Mrs. Whitlock. I corrected her. I told her there is only one Mrs. Whitlock I work with, and her name is Camille. Marshall. Yes. What did she say? She said you were being vindictive. She said you were having a grief episode, that was her phrase, and that you needed family support, not lawyers. She said she was prepared to drive over to your house tonight to resolve this in person. What did you say? I told her that any contact she makes with you in person, in the absence of counsel, will be added to the file as evidence of attempted intimidation of an elderly co-obligor. I told her that the phrase grief episode is a phrase that, in elder financial abuse cases, often appears in the testimony of adult children attempting to invalidate their parents' legal capacity, and that I would be retaining the recording of her voicemail for that reason. Marshall, was there a recording? There is now, Camille, there is now. I laughed. I laughed for almost a full minute. Roland is howling, I said. Camille, Roland is teaching the angels how to file. Donovan came on Friday. He stood on my porch in a wrinkled shirt. His eyes were red. I opened the door halfway. Mum, Donovan, can I come in? You can sit on the bench. I will sit in the chair across from you. We will talk for 20 minutes. After that, you will leave, and we will talk again in 2 weeks if you would like. Those are the rules now. Do you accept them? Yes. He sat. I sat. He cried for the first 3 minutes. I let him. I did not move. I did not soften. Then I said, Donovan, tell me what you understand. He took a breath. I understand that I have spent 10 years letting Phaedra arrange my mother into a smaller and smaller chair at our table. I understand that the bill on Saturday was not a single moment. It was the moment the chair became a paper cup. I understand that the HELOC letter on Wednesday was not punishment. It was a sermon, Mom. I read the letter 4 times. I understand the sermon now. I closed my eyes. Donovan, the HELOC stands. You will pay it back to me with interest over the next 18 years. I am not assuming the loan to take your house. I am assuming the moral architecture of the loan because you and Phaedra have proven you cannot. You will write me a check every month. The check will be small enough that you can pay it. It will be large enough that you will notice it. That is its purpose. Mum, I am not finished. He stopped. The down payment from the lake house, the $312,000. We will not discuss that today. We may discuss it in 5 years. We may never discuss it. That is up to you and how the next 5 years go. He nodded. The grandchildren, Caspian and Theodora, they are welcome at my house every Saturday for the rest of my life, through the front door, without their mother. You may bring them, you may stay. Phaedra may not enter my home until she has written me an apology that contains the word sorry in the active voice and the words I was wrong in a complete sentence. Until then, she may communicate with me through Marshall. Mom, yes, I love you. I know, sweetheart. That is exactly why this is happening. He left. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee, black, the way I had drunk it at the restaurant 6 nights earlier, and I wrote one line in the small notebook I had started keeping the morning after the bill. They left me at the restaurant with the bill. So I left them with the mortgage, and I kept my chair, and I learned what my own face looks like when it is not smiling for someone else. Then I closed the notebook, and I drank my coffee, and I slept the way a woman sleeps when she has finally stopped picking up the bills for tables that had stopped saving her a seat.